And I cannot believe that these jobs that are being done are jobs that Americans would not want to do. The construction workers have been sidelined by illegal hiring of illegal immigrants. I feel that as far as incentives such as welfare and other benefits, they shouldn't go to undocumented immigrants.
Okay, thank you. Richard, we're going to start with you on this one. List your priorities if elected to the state legislature.
Now, I know you gave me 3 priorities, so I jotted them down, and I hope you can indulge my. I'm just an average Joe running for the state Senate seat. Like I say, I served 17 years in the town meeting, but I'm not a 14-year incumbent senator. I'm not a 7-year incumbent selectman, so please, I appreciate your indulgence. 1, reviewing the local aid formula to help mitigate some of the impending cuts our towns are facing. The residents of the 10 towns and districts deserve to know that their tax money is being distributed properly. 2, restore local rules regarding housing. Right now, cities and towns have been impotent because of the 40B rules and regulations. They've been able to come in with 40B and say, well, we're going to build and therefore violate your local conservation, your wetlands, your zoning, your building, and a sundry other rules and regulations of cities and towns. And I think those should be restored to the local authorities and fathers of the department, of the mothers and fathers that serve on the boards of selectmen. And C is to kill Senate Bill 23 forever, being so that it can never be resuscitated, which is appropriate that the only candidate running to become a full-time citizen legislator and someone who knows the importance of the people's right to petition its government. I filed many good government articles in the town of Milton. They were known as citizens' petitions. And as a town meeting representative, one of them was to help asbestos victims, where tens and thousands of victims were dying of asbestos and not getting any relief. And I was very successful, and it passed unanimously. And the second one was to set up a volunteer abatement or rebate program for senior citizens who would like to volunteer to work, and then they would be paid $500. Well, it didn't pass in my time on the town meeting, but it did pass at $750 a senior citizen could volunteer, and they could put that money towards their water bill or what have you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
I think, as I've said from the beginning, that my greatest area of interest is bringing the power back to local communities. For the last 7 years now, sitting on the Board of Selectmen in the town of Canton, I've seen many things that are occurring because we have a one-party system on Beacon Hill. Chapter 40B, for instance, I agree we need the repeal of that law, and I'm hopeful that the coalition to repeal 40B is successful on the November 2nd ballot. This is a disastrous law which is allowing developers to circumvent local zoning bylaws and is creating crushing impacts on school systems throughout this district and most of the towns. Second, lottery diversions. The lottery was set up to have 100% pass-through to local communities, but in this past decade, whenever the state's gotten into financial difficulty, there's been a lottery diversion. Third, local aid. Every year we all pay sales tax, state income tax, gasoline tax, and other taxes to the state. We expect the local aid to come back to the towns, and we expect it to be predicted on the cherry sheets long before we get into a recess after our town meetings. And every year it's a guessing game. So I think the biggest thing that I want to do is reduce the cost of state government, work with the next governor to make sure that Massachusetts lives within its budget, just like every other local community has been doing. For the past 2 years, this state has run through all its rainy day funds and has relied on a one-time federal stimulus monies from the federal government. And I think as I go door to door, people are worried about what this means for 2011. So my priority is primarily economical. I'd like to also see a recalibration of the Chapter 70 funding that has not been calibrated since 1993. Basically, more support to the local communities.
Okay, thank you very much. Richard, all right, so Bob, this is yours. Tell us about your experience with the state legislature.
Well, as a selectman, Sonny, a selectman is the next level down, right beneath the legislature. So I work with both Representative Bill Galvin, I've worked with Representative Timilty, and I've worked actually with Senator Brian Joyce on multiple initiatives. Perhaps the biggest organized effort that we do, other than local petitions that we need our legislature to be involved in, is through the Mass Municipal Association, which I'm a member as a selectman, and the Mass Selectmen Association. This is a lobbying group that lobbies the state legislature every year for for initiatives that make local communities run better, like in healthcare reform, for example. And I think we've pushed hard for that. I'd actually add that to the previous question, and that is I would look for health plan design as a state senator as well too for the local community. So I work with them all the time on local initiatives that are Canton specific, and then through the Mass Municipal Association and Mass Selectmen Association on a larger scale towards addressing the needs of the municipalities.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
Yes, as I told you earlier, when I was 16 years old, I worked with getting a congressman and mayor and city councilors together. Through that initiative, what came from it was legislation for Boston Harbor cleanup programs. And I served on the MDC advisory board for many, many years. The other thing that I did in 1988, I was reading a newspaper article where a gentleman was on oxygen and literally dying of asbestos disease. And it really incensed me when I finished the article that I went out and I organized an asbestos victims advocacy group with 2 other people. And within less than 6 months, we had almost 10,000 members. We had a rally up at the Nurses Hall at the state legislature. And what I did at that point, I drafted up a resolution that I filed in the Milton town meeting. I filed it in the Boston City Council, I filed it in the Quincy City Council. It unanimously passed all those councils, and it was forwarded to the state legislature. It unanimously passed the House of Representatives. The state Senate was signed by the governor. I then forwarded that with 9 congressmen and 1 U.S. senator. Out of the 11 congressional delegation from Massachusetts, 10 of them signed it. That legislation went to Congress, and then within 1 year, in 1987, a special master was appointed. Now, unfortunately, the law had come into effect. The master had taken over, brought the hundreds of thousands of asbestos cases into one for the special master to review them. Some people, unfortunately, it was their obituary. They never lived to see that any type of relief. Their families did, and subsequent to that, you've seen a lot of people being helped, especially in the Braintree, in my district, plus Quincy, where General Dynamic is. I have the endorsement of the Long Service Employees Union, which is 1,800 retirees from General Dynamics, because of my efforts with asbestos disease and what I was able to do to help their families. They endorsed me a couple of weeks ago, and I'm proud to have it.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go on to the next question. Richard, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to amend it just a little bit. Constituent service is very important. How will your office handle this issue, especially in Braintree, because you have 1 district in Braintree? So, because this is a Braintree program and it's going out to our viewers, I'd like you to kind of tell us what you do.
Okay. The question being what I feel about constituent service. Well, I'll first start off by, God rest her soul, my mother taught me that every note or every call deserves a thank you. And what I want to restore to the state Senate seat is to be able to respond to every single one of the constituents, regardless of what the issue is. And as far as only being a few precincts here in Braintree that I represent, because of that gerrymandering, if any resident of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts calls me as your state senator, I will do my best to respond to them, especially everybody in Braintree. No matter what the issue is, whether it be a street light, or a pothole, whether it be healthcare issues, Medicare questions, elderly services, I will respond to you. You will not go without a response of some kind, whether in writing or a phone call. I firmly believe that the office belongs to the people, and I will represent the people in that regard. I'm not here for any self-service. I'm not going to do any legal business. I'm not going to do an investment. I will have no other job but this one job. I will pride myself on it. I will be there to represent you. And when I go to any board or committee meeting in the town of Braintree, you will know that I am there and who I am representing when I walk in that room, and that will be you. So I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, please give my candidacy serious consideration. I'm not an insider. I'm just like your neighbor down the street, across the street, and I will restore that office to full-time constituent service with no other thing on my radar screen but you.
Thank you. Bob?
Well, I think constituent service, this is something that I do every day as a selectman. Some days it only takes 1 hour. Some days it takes an entire day, depending on the the importance of an issue. But you know, I've learned being a selectman sometimes can be a very unpopular position because a lot of times we can't give a resident the answer that they want to hear. But at the end of the day, they're at least appreciative of the fact that we're responsive. So I think after 7 years, I've done a good job of being in contact with the residents in the town that I live in, and I would continue that as a state senator. I think there's two things that we can do. First, I've had a great relationship through the Mass Selectmen Association with other selectmen, and also in this instance, mayor of these communities, and I would assemble them on a regular basis or discuss with them what their issues are from a macro perspective in the district. And then secondly, which is easy enough to do, is every month have hours at Town Hall where residents can come and bring up any matter. And then of course, third goes without saying, State Senate office will always be available via phone call, email, and regular mail for a response.
Okay, thank you. All right, Bob, we're going to give you this one. Senate Bill 23 eliminates the ability to present initiative petitions to the state legislature in the future. Will you support this bill at the Constitutional Convention?
Yeah, I can't support that bill at all. And I think what's interesting is it's a check and balance on the legislature to make sure that if the legislature is moving in a direction that the overall electorate doesn't want, that they have some type of way with which to show that we want something different. So I think it takes away a check and balance that's critically important to the legislature. I would also say that it's not uncommon for these petitions to occur when you have a one-party system. If you had a two-party system, more likely than not, there would be debate, and you wouldn't have ridiculous laws that actually come out of the legislature, such as 40B. You see these initiative petitions when you have a large lobbying group petition a one-party legislature that makes laws that actually help one small segment of the population and hurt many others. So I'm not in favor of eliminating the ability to petition.
Okay, thank you. Richard?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. The reason the Massachusetts Constitution was drafted by, I believe at one point lived in Braintree, John Adams. And the right of a citizen to redress his government goes back to the Magna Carta, back to the 13th century. It was known as a petition then, and it was enshrined in the Declaration of Independence in 1776 and then again in the Bill of Rights by Thomas Jefferson in 1791. Thomas Jefferson firmly believed in the petition of the people. So the Bill of Rights, which is also included in our state constitution, unless we forget, we're damned to repeat it. Can you believe that in 235 years of the United States and this republic, only once the House of Representatives and Congress enacted, but without the approval of the Senate, and it became known as the gag rule, to abolish the initiative petition. So it created such a firestorm that President John Quincy Adams and congressmen fought it and repealed it 8 years later. So ladies and gentlemen, there is no way I would support in a Constitutional Convention of the state legislature any way to take away the initiative petition. If we allowed that to happen, 40B wouldn't be on the ballot, and a whole host of other initiative petitions that became ballot questions, you wouldn't have the ballot questions because they wrote the law in such a vague way that almost everything that could come before the state legislature or the people would want to redress the legislature for what it has done would never get to the ballot, nor would the people have a right to say. So I firmly believe in an initiative to petition, whether it be the Citizens for Limited Taxation, whether it be the National Rifle Association, whether it just be the average citizens of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts who have a question that they want to get to their legislature. So I give you my firm commitment that I will never go against the citizens' right to redress its government.
All right, that sums up the questions. So right now we're going to get back into your summation. Bob, you went first, so we're going to let Richard go first this time. Richard?
Okay, thank you very much. Where do I begin? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to make it short and sweet. I want to thank you very, very much for giving me this opportunity to come to you. There are some areas where they're not allowing the candidates to come forward and get their notices known. So I'm notorious for showing a little something. If you want to take a close look, there's a hole in the sole of my shoe. That's a second pair of shoes, and I guaranteed the people that when I took on the responsibility to run for this office in March, that I would wear the holes in the shoes of my soul, and I have been working very, very hard to garner your support.